Ladies and gents, boys and girls, welcome. Wednesday, January the 3rd, 2024. Hope you're all doing well. Chris Phillips here, your host of SEC Unfiltered Live. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Guys, we have got a jam-packed show for you all here on this hump day. I see Bruin Nation, Ethan K, Jacob, Travi, Adam Ritter. What's going on? Also, those on social media, in our Discord. However, you're tuning in, you're on Facebook, you're on YouTube, you're on X, maybe you're on Twitch. Thank you all so much, guys, for taking the time. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you are on YouTube. Hit that bell icon as well so you get notifications of when we go live, when we drop new video content, which is daily, I might add. Also, head over to iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. You can check us out there at SEC Unfiltered. We drop daily podcasts as well. And of course, guys, we're all across social media, content bleeding out of the eyeballs. Guys, lots happening today. We got a lot to get into. LSU just fired their defensive coordinator. We'll talk about that later in the show. Also, guys, the transfer portal madness continues. Is it a sign of bigger problems at a certain SEC program? Also, Brew McCoy's back for Tennessee. We're also going to have some fun and hand out postseason grades for each SEC football team, seeing as the SEC season has officially come to an end with both Alabama and Texas being eliminated in the college ball playoff. All that, and guys, the daily mailbag at the end of the show, taking your questions, your comments, and your voicemails, 843-790-3377. Would love you guys to be a part of the show. And we're kicking off things in just a moment with our good friend Chris Marler of Saturday Down South, Saturday Football Uncensored. But I want to take a moment, by the way, to shout out our good friends from Vanderbilt Football for sending us this helmet. Thank you so much to the guys over at Vandy. You see, this is like a legitimate on-field helmet. I don't know who wore it. I don't know who number 10 is for Vandy. I got to be totally honest with you. But those guys fired over not just the helmet, they also sent over the football. Look at this. How about this for some studio edition? So thank you so much to the folks from Vandy. That's why we have the Vandy helmet displayed today. Shout out to Clark Lee and the gang, man. This is really, really cool. This is really awesome. So wanted to display it today. And if there's any other SEC teams out there, if there's fans who want to contribute to the studio, contribute to the calls, of course, as you can imagine, I've got plenty of Gamecock stuff, but we're looking to add all kinds of cool pieces. I'm somebody, I love sports memorabilia. I love having stuff like this. So shout out to the Vandy football boys. I do truly appreciate you guys. And yeah, just a really cool thought we'd have Vandy there in the background there. If you're wondering, like, why is there a Vanderbilt helmet back there in the background? Either way, guys, we're kicking off this show on a high note. Tons to get into here on this Wednesday. Our good friend, he joins us weekly, Chris Marler of Saturday Down South, Saturday Football Uncensored, one of the best in the business. Chris, what's going on, my man? How are you?
Well, honestly, I'm a little bit triggered right now that the fact that Vandy was able to send a football several states away to get to you, and we don't have a fucking center at Bama that can snap it 4 yards. So, other than that, doing well.
That is. I was going to ask you though, Chris, the grieving process for a Alabama fan, Chris Marler. I mean, do you not just go back and watch highlights of the 6 other national titles that Nick Saban has won? I mean, is there a whole lot of grieving there, or do you just get in fights on X with Georgia fans? Like, how's that coping process?
Dumbest fucking fan base. This entire weird narrative and like take that people are having that like Georgia would have beaten Michigan or Florida State would have beaten Michigan. First off, saying anything publicly after losing by 60 points, and I mean anything publicly, is a bold move. Yeah, it just cracks me up though. This idea, I mean, like maybe Georgia would have, I don't know, but I do know they didn't beat the team that lost to Michigan. So weird flex. The grieving process, my mom used to always joke around about this because she would say, you know, you've gotten older, you like are a lot more mature, you handle like Bama losses a lot better. I was like, no, Mom, like when I was growing up, Bama sucked. So I was always upset. Like they just don't lose anymore. I don't know, man. This team was a lot of fun to watch. I think I was really sad as when it was over because it ended so abruptly, and it was like the end of like the season. I feel like I had like my best and favorite year that I've had professionally and personally, all that kind of stuff, and it just kind of came to an end. But I mean, tremendous season, lot to be proud of for that team. And it sucks.
Yeah, and I want to start there too. Happy New Year, Chris, and congratulations to you guys over at Saturday Down South. Yourself personally with College Football Uncensored, all the other great successes that you had in 2023, many more in
Thanks, man.
2024, and well deserved. Let's get right into it though. The Rose Bowl. I mean, obviously it was a classic, down to the wire, goes to overtime. Your just initial thoughts and impressions. I mean, obviously it's a disappointing finish. I still went on record, Chris, and said that I thought this was Saban's best coaching job because Alabama obviously had deficiencies and some holes, and maybe more that they had had in quite some time. I mean, the offensive line giving up the most sacks it had in 35 years, I think I read somewhere. So your thoughts, did anything surprise you on how the game played out or what happened Monday night in the ball game?
It kind of felt like, because I was pretty arrogant towards Michigan fans just for the sake of hating the Big Ten Michigan fans, right? Like I was very aware that was a very good football team they were about to play. And I remember saying, I don't know if it was on here, if it was on somewhere else, but I was like, I feel like Bama fans are going to be in for a little bit of a rude awakening in the first half because they're not going to realize how physically talented this team is. I mean, they just, there's a reason why they ranked in the top 5 in like 20 something categories this season. But I was really impressed with Michigan. It felt like you showed up either like you woke up late for a test or you showed up to a fight and you like square up to throw a punch, and then you realize the dude's got cauliflower ear and he's just throwing kicks as well, because it was like they had no answer for anything in the first half. Like people kept talking about how bad the play calling was, and then you look at it and you're like, they didn't have Milroe's first 6 dropbacks, they had 4 sacks. It didn't seem like in the first half they had any kind of answer. They felt like it was, I don't know if it was unprepared, but they were out schemed and out coached and outplayed. And then you get to the second half and you get a lot of momentum and you put yourself in the best possible scenario for usually a Saban and Bama team where you have a touchdown lead with 4 minutes to go and like your defense has got to get, a stop. And I think what was deflating about it was like, I didn't mind the play call in overtime at all. I thought I liked what they did with Jalen Milroe. Maybe they could have given him like a pass option as well, the run pass. But he's earned that for one, and he's also the best athlete on the field. So I didn't mind that at all. The usage of like the what do you call it? The skill position players. Like Roydell Williams had 16 carries against Georgia. He only had 6. Or I'm sorry, he never had less than 6 in any game this season. He had 1 carry the whole game. You had a true freshman running back come in and get carries. It just was very confusing. But you in the second half when you have 12 plays for 24 yards, that's what the defense allowed against Michigan. Michigan had 6 carries for -2 yards, Chris. 6 carries for -2 yards going into the last 4 minutes in that final drive. And then when they got the ball, their last 10 plays in the fourth and overtime, they gained 100 yards and scored 2 touchdowns. So it's like, you just can't win like that.
Chris, I'm sure you've gotten this question a lot this season, but again, you watched that game on Monday and it just reinforced the issues on the offensive line for Alabama. But how does a team like Alabama, a program like Alabama that recruits the way they do, how do you have those kind of issues? You mentioned it. How do you have a center that can't snap the football? And it's as simple as fix the offensive line. But I mean, how do they do that? Because I don't think talent's the issue, right?
No, talent's not. I mean, that has been one of the main pieces to these teams for a long time. I think there was, up until last year, they had five or six straight seasons where they had an offensive lineman and a skill position player drafted in the first round. Like I don't know, they haven't always done great in the NFL, but they've been very, very good in college, and they recruit 5 stars everywhere. And so to see the PFF grades for the blocking, dude, they gave up 49 sacks this year, which ranked 129th in the country out of 133 teams. And, they had gelled a little bit as of late in the year, and they'd played a lot better as a unit. But it just, it looked as sloppy as it could have when they needed that not to happen the most. I don't know how you fix it. I don't know how you fix it. It's not like you can bring in even more talent. A lot of these kids are like the top ranked player at their position or in the country, at the offensive line position or offensive tackle position. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but it is mind blowing to watch that this big of a drop off over the last 3 or 4 years.
Chris, Jalen Milroe in that game, 16 of 23, 116 yards passing. Had the fumble, did not throw an interception, no touchdown passes. What's the confidence level in him going into next year? I mean, obviously, like you mentioned, when he steps on the field, he's the best athlete on the field. I think definitely could take strides as a
Yeah.
passer. Your overall feelings on him, because Alabama's going to be very talented, but you know as well as I do, to win a national championship, you just got to have that guy under center.
But here's the thing, too. I think that he is maybe he's limited versus or in comparison to like the other quarterbacks in the playoff, because it's a really good batch of quarterbacks that are in those Final Four teams. But this idea that Jalen Milroe is to blame at all for that game, like first thing I said, 6 dropbacks, 4 sacks.
Mhm.
Dude was running for his life the entire game. So I don't know what you do to get like, I mean, like the confidence level for me going in the offseason, he's the guy. Like, this is his first year starting. He has a new OC that is like young, not in his first year as an OC, but he's young. And then you talk about the fact that like they're trying to get all this gel together. It took a quarter of the way through the season for them to even figure out like what their identity was going to be from a starter standpoint. And then it wasn't like they unveiled the entire playbook until the LSU game where they started letting him run finally. I think he came into his own in the last month of the season, and like what you want out of a quarterback more than anything is a leader. And he is the leader in that locker room. I think the team kind of goes as he goes sometimes, or for most of the time. If anyone else steps like under center or steps on the field next year at quarterback, I'm going to be fucking irate. If Tyler Buckner is even in the stadium, I'll lose my mind. But I think that he had a really, really good season. He did not play well. He didn't have his best game against Michigan. I mean, but that's also a really, really good team that like, I mean, dude, they've given up over 200 yards passing twice all season. Like they've given up 7 total touchdown passes on the year. Like it's a really, really good defense. And he struggled.
Chris, there was one drive specifically where I think there were like 2 or 3 bad snaps in a row. What was the roller coaster of emotions like for you watching that?
I'm trying not to like slander this kid because he has the yips, obviously. Like, and I've played baseball most of my life, and I totally get it. And it happens. Like it's a mental block or something like that. It can't happen. It can't fucking happen, and especially at that stage. And that's one of the things I was pretty critical about Bama on all year is, regardless of what it was, there was always something it seemed like that would rear its ugly head that made me feel like this team was like good and overcoming a lot of their flaws, but never elite. And I tell you what, man, you're lucky to be close in that game in the first half. Like you had 38 total yards and 34 of them came on 1 touchdown run. They get a field goal late at the end of the first half, get some momentum, and then they come out of the locker room making adjustments, and that's all you can ask for from Bama because they've done it all year. Like, get to the locker room, make adjustments, and go win a fucking ball game. And I think they gained like 30 yards in the first 2 plays. They crossed midfield, and sure as shit, we snap a ball at his feet and then snap one over his head, and we lose like 29 yards in the first 2 plays. It is. At every moment that felt like it was critical, it not having the confidence that you're even going to be able to begin the play that you're calling in an efficient way. It's like if you were a chef on fucking Top Chef and all you had to do was turn the oven on and you couldn't do it. For whatever reason. It was so fucking like very difficult to watch.
Chris, to the rest of the SEC bowl season, which teams impressed you most? Obviously, Missouri got that big one over Ohio State, Ole Miss over Penn State, and they've got so much momentum going into 2024. Tennessee and Nico, I heard you talking about it this morning on Crane and Company about you think they could be a sleeper for the 12-team playoff, which I agree with you. Just your top takeaways, if you will, from the SEC bowl season.
I mean, Georgia played pretty well. That was
Indeed.
That was something. No, I thought it was a really good. Like this has been considered a down year for the SEC by like everyone, right? I still think that top to bottom, I think the Pac-12 is probably the best conference in college football this year. But this was considered a down year for the SEC, and like how it wasn't that deep, they weren't that good. And then you finish bowl season with, I think it's 4 11-win teams, which is incredible. Ole Miss, Mizzou, like I said, Bama and Georgia. I thought that I think Tennessee, like the bowl game is whatever. I think that going into next year, they're going to be dangerous for sure. I also say that the biggest takeaway I had, I don't know if this even answers the question, but the craziest thing I saw from a stat, like from a stat wise, the Big Ten came into bowl season with the top 4 ranked scoring defenses in the country. They had 5 in the top 20, and they had 4 of the top 5. What do you call it, defenses in terms of yards per game or yards per game allowed, right? Just elite, like 4 in the top 5 in both categories. Ohio State, their game against Mizzou, they scored 3 points, the lowest they've scored in 7 years. Penn State gave up the most points and the most yards they've given up in any game all season when they played Ole Miss, gave up 540 yards. Wisconsin gave up the most points and most yards they've given up all season in a game to LSU. It's a top 20 defense for them. And I'm missing one. Oh, Iowa. Iowa gave up 35 points, which is the most they gave up all season. So, like, what they were able to do, I think, against good competition, ranked competition, top to bottom, was really impressive from the SEC.
And speaking on teams, Chris, that aren't in the SEC yet, but will be in just a couple months, Oklahoma and Texas. They both lose their bowl games, but both had pretty solid seasons. Your thoughts on them now is, we're going to get a lot of way too early 2024 stuff, yours truly included.
Yeah.
Your thoughts now that it's a reality that's right in front of us, how Texas and Oklahoma are set up to succeed or maybe take some lumps in that first year.
So it'll be interesting to see who all comes back for Texas, like what the offense is going to look like. I tell you what, the thing that surprised me the most from them this year is because I've said for 2 years in a row now, I thought they were going to like make the jump, and they finally, get to the playoff this year. But in the 2 losses they had against Washington and OU, you can kind of put it on Sarkisian. Like I say he's the best offensive mind in the game at any level. But in both those games, you had the ball inside the 5-yard line at the end of the game or 10-yard line at the end of the game with at least 3 calls that like in your back pocket, and you come up short. So that's a little bit concerning. OU, that fan base, arrogant is putting it kindly. They are. I hope they're in for a rude awakening. I think it'll be interesting to see Jackson Arnold and what he's able to do. Very, very overconfident, I think. And if you would have told me that the cocky one was going to be Oklahoma, I would have probably thought you were crazy. I do think Texas is set up long-term for success better, just because I think like you saw them this year, how good they played on defense, and they were a more complete team. And and now that we're in NIL, man, like it's not going to go away. They are going to have money and bags being thrown at these recruits constantly. Like they will never be, I think, non-relevant in this era ever again.
Chris Marler, Saturday Down South. Chris, one last thing, we'll get you out of here. National championship game officially set. It is Michigan, who you just saw, against the Washington Huskies and Michael Penix Jr., who I think is just a wizard back there at the quarterback position. Your thoughts on the ball game? It feels like 2 contrasting styles, maybe, with Michigan being run game defense and then Washington this high-flying offense. Your thoughts on how it'll play out next Monday night?
I honestly, it's the second time in 18 years there's not going to be an SEC team in, so it feels a little bit weird, right? Like this is like in our job especially, it feels like the end of the season, but there's still one more game left. Like we're about to go record a preview pod in like 2 hours. I'm like, what the hell? I think it's a great matchup, man. I think it's a great matchup. It might not seem that way. People are going to think it's just like, like you said, contrasting styles. Washington has been doubted all year, and it sounds stupid because they're 14-0, but like it's a lot like TCU last year. Like all they've done is win games. They might have been closer than people may have liked, but all they've done is beat ranked teams and win games over and over. Like disrespected, I feel like almost every time they were in a big moment. When you talk about Oregon beating Oregon and then being a 10-point underdog the next time you play Oregon and beating them again, you're an underdog against Texas. You got to go all the way down to New Orleans to go play them, which is a much easier trip for Texas. I really like that team, man. They're good up front. They've got legit NFL talent at receiver, and Penix has been incredible to watch. And just the way he's able to evade the rush and still get the ball out is incredible. Michigan is a fucking beast, man. They are legit. They are like really, really legit. And I hated having to be proven wrong seeing that, but it was the thing that blew me away the most about Michigan. Had nothing to do with the talent or like, Blake Corum or JJ McCarthy. They were one step ahead of Alabama for most of that game from a coaching standpoint. Like from the coordinator standpoint, and they were much more creative in their play calling and play design than I ever thought they would be. I thought it was like a 1970s 3 yards in a cloud of dust bullshit. When you combine that and all the talent they have in that roster, I think Michigan's going to win because it just kind of feels like they're on a mission from, I don't know, whatever Jim Harbaugh believes in. But I think it's going to be a really good game. I think Michigan's going to win.
Michigan feels like the Houston Astros of college football. That's kind of, I've been going back to that. It just
Connor Stalions was in the fucking stadium at the Rose Bowl. Unreal. But yeah, I mean, I don't. It's they beat Bama now, so like it's that part's over. I'm not going to sit here and shit on them anymore because I tell you what, man. Like all jokes aside, like I felt like they kind of skated or kind of whistled through the graveyard to get there, but they are every bit of deserving as a top 4 team. That's for sure.
Chris Marler, one of the best in the business. Chris, always appreciate you taking the time, my friend. Y'all keep up the great work and look forward to having many electric conversations with you in 2024, my friend. I appreciate you.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah, man. We'll talk soon. Great stuff, guys, from Chris Marler, Saturday Down South, Saturday Football Uncensored. Y'all check out all of his work. And again, really appreciate Chris being a weekly guest here on SEC Unfiltered Live. Guys, we're going to jump into our first break of the day. On the other side, how would you grade each SEC team for their 2023 football season? Guys, I'm going to do just that in my postseason report card. We're going to go through, grade every team, how they fared this past season. Guys, all that and more on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to SEC Unfiltered Live.
Yo, you think Dallas' Power 4 going to drop 30 tomorrow?
Boy, you tripping.
Did you see his mom made a post about going to the game?
What? Hold up. His mama gonna be there?
He's been averaging like 34 points a game when she's there.
At least 40 when she be on that Jumbotron.
He don't like to let his mama down.
Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Cash in on your sports fandom with Prize Picks.
SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Go download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com. And when you do, use the promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is the simplest fantasy game on the market, focused around prop total entries. You pick 2 to 6 players, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. Prize Picks has no sharks, optimizers, or mass multi-entry. It's literally just you against the projection. They also allow mixed sport entry. So, for example, you can take the over on LeBron, parlay with the under on Mahomes. They've got college sports, pro sports, literally anything and everything you can think of. They have got it over at Prize Picks. They also have a slick, easy-to-use mobile app, both in the App Store and Google Play, and they're rated 4.8 stars in the App Store with rave reviews. So many fans and listeners of SEC Unfiltered have made tons of money with our friends at Prize Picks, and you should as well. So again, go download the Prize Picks app or head over to prizepicks.com, and when you do, use that promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. We're also brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie. When your money's on the line, choose a trusted sports book that gives you tools to win, like MyBookie. At MyBookie, it doesn't matter if your team is up or down. You can easily cash out or bet the game live to come out on the winning side. Use MyBookie for daily odds boosts, same-game parlays, and take advantage of huge prize pool contests. Every single sack, fumble, and touchdown is another chance to hit payday. To get started, go to mybookie.ag, and on your first deposit, use promo code SECU to grab a deposit match up to $1,000. Try the MyBookie money bag as well to grab a potential Super Bowl frontrunner at long shot odds, plus 38,000 on the Eagles and Chiefs. You won't find odds like that anywhere else. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. Finally, SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Roback. Guys, if you haven't heard of Roback before, it's time to check them out. It's safe to say I'd bet on these guys any day of the week because I absolutely love their gear. I couldn't be more pumped to work with Roback. It's simply some of the most comfortable gear that I own. From the performance polos to the hoodies and the joggers, it's some of the best fit and best feel around. Roback's performance hoodies are some of the best pieces of clothing I've ever worn. I can't emphasize how soft these things are with great stretch and breathability. They're simply some of the best hoodies out there. Odds are, guys, if you see me during football season, baseball season, basketball season, or just here on SEC Unfiltered Live, you'll more than likely see me in a Roback hoodie. Secondly, guys, Roback's performance polos, they're some of the most comfortable polos out there. They're moisture wicking with 4-way stretch, making them perfect for a game day, and they have the perfect fit. With crisp collars that don't lose their shape, I could not recommend. In all honesty, guys, Roback's been gaining traction big time. I'm sure you've seen them. They've been working with some of college football's biggest stars, such as Alabama's quarterback Jalen Milroe and former LSU head coach Ed Orgeron. So go check them out now and use the promo code SECU on Roback.com for a generous 20% off your first order. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. 20% off all bottoms, Q-zips, hoodies, and more with the promo code SECU. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Wednesday, January the 3rd, 2024. Again, guys, the big news of today, right before we jumped on the airwaves, Matt House, LSU defensive coordinator, has been terminated. LSU finished 105th in total defense this season, scoring defense tied for 78th in the country. So not surprising at all. They're also cleaning house in regards to the rest of the staff. That includes former Gamecocks defensive line coach, because I know many of you are Gamecock fans tuned in. Jimmy Lindsey is also terminated. So we'll talk about that more, guys, later in the show, but not really surprising news when you have a historically bad defense. And, you know, bad defense is something our good friend Blake Ruffino of AYS Sports, he's been on these airwaves talking about, Chris. Bad defense does not survive in Baton Rouge, right? It's just something that you can be okay on offense. You could be, you know, figuring it out. You cannot be bad defensively and live to tell the tale in Baton Rouge. So, again, guys, more on that later in the show. I want to once again say thank you so much to our good friend Chris Marler of Saturday Down South, Saturday Football Uncensored. To thank you all so much for tuning in, guys. Again, be sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube, guys. We're dropping so much YouTube content now. Daily YouTube content. I'm talking 3 to 4, sometimes 5 videos on the daily. Be sure you hit that subscribe button. Of course, guys, also, you can listen to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. SEC Unfiltered. Check us out there. And also, guys, we published on social media today. If you are interested, we are taking applications. We are looking to build and scale our SEC Unfiltered team, fill in positions such as an editor, social media manager, bloggers, content contributors for football, baseball, basketball, gambling content contributors. If you are interested, please email secunfiltered@gmail.com. Serious inquiries only. I shouldn't have to say that. But reach out to us, man. Again, we are scaling, we are growing, we are building our SEC Unfiltered team. And I cannot wait for you guys to see all the great things we're working on and see some of the great work that we're going to be featuring over at secunfiltered.com. With that being said, our postseason report card grading each and every single individual SEC football team of the 2023 season. Let's go ahead and go down this list, guys. We will start with the Alabama Crimson Tide, who just fell to Michigan in the Rose Bowl. Final score 27-20 in overtime. How would you grade Alabama's 2023 football season? An interesting season for the Crimson Tide, no doubt, right? It started off slow. You had that loss to Texas. You had folks like me picking 9-3 in the preseason, right? 9-3 over the summer at SEC Media Days. And it looked like those of us that doubted Nick Saban and Alabama were going to be correct, right? When you watch that USF game following the Texas loss, and it looked like Alabama was destined for a 7 or maybe even 8-win season. Credit to Nick Saban, credit to Tommy Rees, credit to that entire coaching staff for righting the ship, rallying the troops, and figuring some things out, right? Alabama finishing this season 12-2 overall, guys, went undefeated in SEC play, 8-0, and of course, guys, won the SEC championship. I'm grading Alabama's season at an A, right? It's not an A+ because you didn't win the national title, so you did not ultimately meet the goals, the expectations, the standards set out for Bama football, which is every single year, national championship or bust. But when you look at Bama, guys, to overcome the adversity that they had, which a lot of it was self-inflicted, right? A lot of these wounds, a lot of these errors were self-inflicted, just not doing the little things right. Jalen Milroe evolving and coming into his own. I think all in all, a positive season for Alabama, guys. Any year in which you go undefeated in conference play, in the best conference in America, and you beat the back-to-back national champions in the SEC title, that's a pretty damn good year. It's not an A+ for Bama because they didn't win it all, but it's an A for sure. A really, really good season with the Crimson Tide. Guys, we move to the Arkansas Razorbacks. We're going alphabetically here. I'm giving Arkansas an F. 4-8 overall, 1-7 in conference play, guys. The one win, ironically enough, over Billy Napier and the Florida Gators. But, I mean, to say this season fell short of expectations, even if you were someone who came into the season conservatively on Arkansas, you were picking 6-6, which felt like, you may have been selling Arkansas short with what they had returning in KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders. And, they had some questions defensively, but they had Pooh Paul at linebacker. They had some guys for sure. But from start to finish, guys, this season was ugly. This season was abysmal, right? When you look at the home games, the ugly losses to BYU in the non-conference, then you get your doors blasted off by an Auburn team, by a not very good Auburn team, I might add. It was miserable from start to finish. And again, anytime you're talking about your head coach and his job status, and that was the case with Sam Pittman, right? Your AD has to come out and say, hey, we believe in Sam Pittman. He'll be back next year, which is basically the school saying, hey, you're on a 1-year contract. If you don't get it going next year, you're fired. It was a tumultuous season for Arkansas, to say the least. An F grade is fitting for a 4-8 season, 1-7 in SEC play for the Hogs. Hard to believe the type of year they had in Fayetteville. Guys, to the Plains we go. The Auburn Tigers, who in year one of Hugh Freeze went 6-7, including that bowl loss in the Music City Bowl to Maryland, ugly fashion. 3-5 in SEC play, guys. I give Auburn a C- for this season. I think getting to a bowl game is success in year one, but it's strange looking back because there were some good, there were some bad, and there were some really, really ugly for Hugh Freeze in year one. I mean, I think the good guys getting to 6 wins, just getting to a bowl game. I thought Hugh Freeze was very candid and very honest at SEC Media Days back over the summer when he said, hey, guys, listen, be patient, right? We're building this thing. We're just getting going. He was pleading for patience with his fan base. And anytime a head coach is doing that, that's him saying, hey, listen, we like some things we have, but give us some time to figure it out. Don't expect 8 or 9 wins in year one. So I think for year one, even at a place like Auburn with super high expectations and standards, getting to a bowl game was a success. The bad, well, guys, I mean, how about losing to New Mexico State for starters? You could label that in the ugly as well. How about losing the Music City Bowl as another? The ugly, 4th and 31. Again, the New Mexico State loss. That bowl game was abysmal as well. So, I thought, though, for Auburn, some more of the positive, showed great fight against Alabama in that game, against Georgia. So there were positives to take away. There was enough promise in year one of the Hugh Freeze era that that gives you belief that Auburn will be a force to be reckoned with sooner rather than later in the SEC. I didn't even mention, guys, the ugly being the Auburn offense and how abysmal it was all year long. One of the worst in college football this year with Peyton Thorne running the show at quarterback. But all in all, a C- grade for Auburn. I think a year in which you set the foundation in year one, despite the madness, despite the New Mexico State game, despite 4th and 31, despite the Music City Bowl. There was enough good to outweigh the bad, right? C's get degrees, but barely. A C- for Auburn. Guys, we move to Gainesville, the Florida Gators and Billy Napier. I'm giving Florida a D+ for this season. 5-7 overall, 3-5 in SEC play. You know, Auburn met their expectations. Like, I picked Florida right at 5-7 and 3-5 in SEC play, right? They met the expectations. But the way in which it happened, right? It's one thing to pick it. It's one thing to pick it. Then you see it play out on the field. And Florida struggles, right? I mean, their best win of the season, I think, coming in Columbia at Williams-Brice Stadium against the Gamecocks and that thriller in which they come back late in the fourth quarter. The loss to Arkansas, though, was maddening. And Florida, I mean, guys, at one point, we forget Florida was 5-2. They were 5-2. Beat Tennessee in the swamp and then lost their last 5 in a row. And you look at 4 of those 5 guys, they're understandable, right? 4 of those 5 are understandable when you look at the competition. Losing that Arkansas game knocks this grade down a full letter grade at minimum. Like, that was the one that was the real dagger. I also think, guys, you look at the way it played out. Billy Napier's team in year 2 of his tenure, one of the biggest reasons he's on the hot seat, guys, it's about how it looks and looking so disorganized, so dysfunctional, and so out of sorts on a weekly basis. When you're making year 1 mistakes in year 2, that's when you have a major problem. So for Florida, a D+, it's not a failing grade, but I don't know that there's a whole lot that the Gators can hang their hat on in year 2 and a pivotal year 3 now upcoming for Billy Napier's program. Georgia, let's move to Athens. I give Georgia an A-, guys. 13-1, 13-1, 8-0 in the SEC. Of course, you lose the SEC title game, but you get that big 63-3 win in the Orange Bowl over Florida State. I mean, there's not a whole lot to complain about, guys, when it comes to Georgia. I mean, obviously losing to Alabama is less than ideal. Still having that Nick Saban-sized or Nick Saban demon on your shoulder, if you will, that Alabama-sized monkey on your back, if you will, that you just can't seem to get rid of, the nightmare that is Alabama football for Georgia fans. But, I mean, again, guys, 13-1. In a 12-team playoff, this Georgia team gets its shot to win it all, which they should have. I think Georgia, we'd all sit here and say Georgia was undoubtedly, at the end of the season, one of the best 4 teams in college football. I'm not saying they should have gotten in the 4-team college football playoff. Was Georgia one of the best 4 teams? Absolutely, right? I think they showed that in that Florida State game, and I think they showed that throughout the entire season. Fell short of the goal. Fell short of the expectations, but still a really good year in Athens. And, guys, I think this year just showed us yet again how difficult it is to win back-to-back national championships. It's hard to win 1. It's damn near impossible to win 2. And numbers would show us it is virtually impossible to win 3 in a row. So, Georgia, all in all, a really good season. I know they wish they had another shot at the college football playoff and competing for the title, but again, you go 13-1, 8-0 with the regular season in the SEC. That one blemish coming to Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide. That one stings, but it doesn't take away from a really good year. An A- for Georgia in 2023. Guys, let's move to Kentucky. The Kentucky Wildcats went 7-6, 3-5 in SEC play. I'm going to give Kentucky a C here, just because, you look at their season. They fell 1 game short of what I expected them to be. They fell 1 game short of, I think, what expectations were in Lexington. But this was a season, guys, in which you go 7-6. You just didn't do anything all that noteworthy, though, outside of beat your rival, the Louisville Cardinal, which is going to make those in Big Blue Nation very, very happy. But, I mean, in SEC play, guys, I mean, you beat up on what turned out to be a bad Florida team. You picked on your non-conference at the beginning of the season. You beat Vandy. So You started 5-0, right? And then you go 2-6. 2-6 over your last 8 games, but one of those wins over your arch rival, the Louisville Cardinals. So, and then the other win is Mississippi State, who turned out to be one of the worst teams in the conference. More on that in a second. So it's like the record, you look at the record, oh, okay, Kentucky didn't have a bad year, but then you look at how it happened and what happened, and you lose to Clemson in the bowl game, and it's like, there's just not a whole lot for Kentucky. It's like, it was a meh type of season. Like, most things fell short of expectations for Kentucky. Devin Leary was one of the most disappointing players, I think, in the entire conference. Those great wide receivers, Barryon Brown and Dane Key, because of that, they never really lived up to the hype and expectation. I will say that Ray Davis was a fantastic player for Kentucky this year, but outside of that, it was just kind of a blah season for the Wildcats. And so for that reason, guys, I give them a C overall. It's passing, but it's nothing flashy. Let's go to Baton Rouge, guys. The LSU Tigers finished 10-3 on the year. They just capped off their season, of course, with that ReliaQuest Bowl win over the Wisconsin Badgers. 10-3 overall, 6-2 in the SEC. Certainly fell short of their goals and expectations a season after they won the SEC West and appeared in the SEC title game. The goal and the expectation was to get back. And heck, some folks out there were even picking LSU to win the national championship, which I won't say was a bad pick. I think when you looked on paper, they were my pick to win the SEC West. They had basically everything coming back. There was a lot of reason to go with Brian Kelly and the LSU Tigers, but the historically bad defense, which of course leads to LSU firing their defensive coordinator Matt House today. The historically bad defense, and it's a shame, honestly, guys, because LSU went 9-3 in the regular season, right? Losses to Ole Miss, Alabama, and I'm forgetting one more. Ole Miss, Alabama, and one other that I seem to, for whatever reason, cannot remember. Oh, Florida State to begin the season. Duh, that feels like that happened eons ago. Those 3 losses, all 3, the defense was to blame. It's scary to think what this LSU team would have been if they even had just an average defense. Because on the other side, hey, it's always a pretty fun season when you got a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, right? I give LSU a C+ overall grade, guys, just because, again, fell short of expectations. The defense was so bad, but you did have a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback in the midst of a 9-3 campaign, and you closed off the season on a high note. Garrett Nussmeier with a fantastic outing in that ball game, and you fired your defensive coordinator. So good on LSU for making a move today. A C+ season in Baton Rouge. 9 wins, some great moments, but I think 2023 for LSU will always be remembered for what could have been and not what was. Guys, we go to Starkville, Mississippi State, a team that fired their head coach in 2023, 5-7 overall, 1-7 in SEC play, guys. I got a little empathy for Mississippi State. I'm going to give them a D+. It's not an F just because when you factor in everything that Mississippi State had to deal with, everything Mississippi State was going through this season, it's just not many teams I think would have fared much better, right? With the passing of the late, great Mike Leach, put in a really tough situation. I thought Zach Arnett was obviously, just putting a Band-Aid on a bullet hole, right? He was the short-term solution. Even folks around Starkville, folks we had on our airwaves talked about, hey, he's the short-term answer. He's not a long-term answer. Now they have Jeff Levy, which I'm sure they hope, of course, will be the guy, and I think could be the guy in Starkville to get them back to minimum respectability. Just a tough season all the way around, right? Will Rogers didn't live up to his potential, and that's because of the changes on offense. Kevin Barbay's offensive scheme was a failure from start to finish. Mississippi State, the one highlight, they did get the big win against Arkansas, who turned out, of course, like we mentioned, guys, to be terrible. But still, that was a bright spot for Mississippi State. Competed hard in that final game against Ole Miss, but all in all, just a really, really disappointing season in Starkville, even after the passing of the late, great Mike Leach. I expected more. I expected more out of Mississippi State, so a D+ for the Bulldogs in 2023. Guys, let's go to Como. How about the Missouri Tigers, man? 11-2 overall, 6-2 in SEC play. That huge win in the Cotton Bowl against the Ohio State Buckeyes. I'm giving Missouri an A+ on the season. And there are very few A+, guys, that we handed out. But when you talk about and when you take into account the fact that Missouri was picked to finish 6th in the SEC East, was picked by most, including yours truly, as a 500 football team, 6-6 is where I had Mizzou. I thought, you know what, with Eli Drinkwitz, he's the Jeff Fisher of college football. He's going to go 500. He's going to keep his job somehow. He's the definition of average. He's the definition of mediocrity, and that's just who he is, and that's just what Missouri football is under his leadership. What Eli Drinkwitz did with that program, and it started early, right? That big game-winning field goal against Kansas State, which, of course, Kansas State turned out to be a really good football team. The thicker kicker, right, gives them the W. It seems like they rode that momentum early. And you could tell early, by the way, even in the loss to LSU in the home field, the way Missouri looked in that ball game, you could just tell this was a different team. You could tell this was a different season, right? And the highlights were many, right? Throttled, and I mean throttled, the Tennessee Volunteers, beat down a hapless South Carolina team, right? Played Georgia as competitive as anybody in the SEC did this season. It was one of those years that for a program like Missouri, and I'm not speaking negatively on Missouri, but for a program like Missouri, they will remember forever and ever and ever. A magical season in Como, especially when it ends with a victory in the Cotton Bowl over a storied program like Ohio State. And now you set yourself up, guys, an 11-win season. All of a sudden, Mizzou sets themselves up as realistic college football playoff contenders in 2024. You know, the job that Brady Cook, Luther Burden, Cody Schrader being an All-American at running back, you know, that defense that returns so much experience. Just a wonderful year for Eli Drinkwitz and company. Of course, winning Coach of the Year, which was well-deserved. An A+ season in every sense of the word for the Missouri Tigers. Guys, we go to Oklahoma. The Oklahoma Sooners. I know they're not in the SEC yet, but I figure, hey, why not? Let's talk Oklahoma and Texas. The Oklahoma Sooners, I give Oklahoma guys a B. For a program that, again, you know, in Brent Venables, year 2 of Brent Venables, there were a lot of questions coming in this year after, you know, a sluggish year 1. The defense was not very good. Oklahoma starts out 7-0, drops that big one to Texas, then falls in the Battle of Bedlam against Oklahoma State and what's going to probably be the last matchup for quite some time. You know, for Oklahoma guys, I think, you know, you have a 10-win season. You know, you fall in the Alamo Bowl. It was a good year. But anytime you lose to Texas and you don't even make an appearance in the Big 12 title game, it's not a great year, right? It's just an okay year for a place like Oklahoma that has the high standards, has the high expectations they have. So I think a B overall grade is about right for the Sooners. I think Boomer is set up well, though, coming in the SEC. I think there were great strides taken by Brent Venables' program this year, getting the defense right. You know, the job Dylan Gabriel did at quarterback. You do get Jackson Arnold some experience in that Alamo Bowl, so that was a positive. But the loss to Texas, the loss to Oklahoma State, those really sting if you're a fan of Boomer Sooner. And so a B overall grade for Oklahoma in year 2 of the Brent Venables era. Guys, to Oxford, Mississippi we go. The Ole Miss Rebels. How about them? Hotty toddy. 11-2 overall, 6-2 in SEC. Playing, guys, for the first time ever with the win over Penn State in the Peach Bowl. In case you missed it, first time ever, Ole Miss hits 11 wins in a season. How about that, man? How about that? One of the best seasons in Ole Miss football history, an A+ for Ole Miss. I mean, no duh, right? What a great year it was. The 2 losses only coming to Alabama and Georgia. And I know you can say, well, they didn't get over the hump. They didn't win that big game. You're really nitpicking if you do that. I think the big win of the season came against Penn State in the final game. And people can say, well, it's a bowl game. Who cares? Bowl games, this, bowl games, that. When you win a bowl game to win 11 games in a season, first time in school history, it's a very big deal. And now with this positive momentum that Ole Miss has built up, what they're doing in the transfer portal, again, I think you look at Ole Miss, guys, they're not just a favorite. They shouldn't just be talked about as this team could make the college ball playoff. They could win it. Like, Ole Miss, I think, realistically could win it all. So the fact that we're having that conversation just goes to show you how great of a season it was for Lane Kiffin and company. I mean, Jackson Dart was phenomenal, guys. Quinshon Judkins, Trey Harris at wide receiver, Pete Golding and what he did with that defense. It wasn't perfect, but I think they made major strides on that side of the ball this year as well. And then, again, you factor into what they're doing in the portal, what Lane Kiffin's building, the monster he's compiling in Oxford, an A-plus season for Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss Rebels. To Columbia, South Carolina we go. The South Carolina Gamecocks, who finished 5-7, 3-5 in SEC play. I give South Carolina a D overall grade. The highlight of the season, Spencer Rattler, and the revitalization of his career and what OC Dabble Loggins did. I mean, it was a one-man show in Columbia, guys. It was the Spencer Rattler show, also the emergence of his top weapon on the outside, Xavier Legette, as Juice Wells was virtually unavailable the entire season for a number of different reasons. The defense was atrocious, right? The defense was abysmal until the final 2 games of the year, so give credit. They did come on strong, but for the most part, the defense was awful. I would fully expect, and if they don't, I'll be stunned. I would fully expect South Carolina to be the next team, to have a changing of the guard at defensive coordinator. Got a big win over Kentucky late in the year. The Florida game, though, was the one that really, really sticks out if you're a fan of the Gamecocks, right? I mean, just an inexcusable loss to the Florida Gators. You had a 10-point lead with about 4 minutes to go. You blow that lead. And I think that was the one, guys, we can all agree that really sent South Carolina's 2023 season for a tailspin. But, I mean, guys, when you factor in all the offseason momentum, you win 8 games in the 2022 season. You beat Tennessee, beat Clemson, back-to-back top 10 wins. You had Spencer Rattler and Juice Wells returning. You had so many key pieces returning from that 22 team, and you don't even make a bowl game. I mean, it's a disappointment in every sense of the word. It's safe to say Gamecock Nation did not find their joy in the 2023 season. A D overall grade for South Carolina. Guys, we move to Knoxville, the Tennessee Volunteers, who finished the season 9-4 overall, 4-4 in SEC play, including that big 35-0 win over the Iowa Hawkeyes in the Citrus Bowl. I give Tennessee guys a B-. The big knock on Tennessee this year, losing that game to Florida in the Swamp, which was, flat out inexcusable, right? If you're a fan of the Volunteers, guys, was flat out inexcusable if you're a fan of Tennessee. But, I thought a year after losing Hendon Hooker, after losing Jalen Hyatt, there were a lot of question marks. I think a lot of people expected Joe Milton to just kind of fill in and be that next dude. And, it became very obvious Joe Milton was who he was. I think Josh Heupel actually elevated Joe Milton above his skill set, above his talent level, if you will. The defense for Tennessee was really, really good. That front seven was something to talk about all year long. I think, again, after you lose Hooker, after you lose Hyatt, with what you had at quarterback in Joe Milton, which, why did Nico not play more? Which, by the way, Tennessee fans, I want to apologize. I'm sorry for butchering Nico's last name on our show yesterday. I thought I had it right. That's why I kept repeating it over and over again. Either way, though, surprised Nico didn't play more throughout the regular season. It was awesome to see him in the bowl game. And obviously now the hype train begins. And, you see the skill set, the arm, the legs, the poise, what he can do at the quarterback position. But all in all, you win 9 games. It's not maybe what Tennessee fans were hoping for, but in year 3 of the Josh Heupel era, guys, if that's going to be the floor under Josh Heupel, winning 8 to 9 games, I would say you're in a pretty good spot on Rocky Top, especially with the 12-team playoff upcoming, and I think any double-digit win SEC team is going to get in. So Tennessee, a team knocking on the door of contending for the college ball playoff going into next season, a B- for the Vols in 2023. Let's look at the Texas Longhorns, guys, who just lost to the Washington Huskies in the college ball playoff. I give an A grade for the Texas Longhorns, guys. You win the Big 12 title game. Your only loss of the season in the regular season was to your arch rival. You go back throughout their season, only suffered 1 loss. For some reason, the loss escapes me. Either way, though, Texas, I thought, with a really successful season, guys. And I keep getting that rivalry game messed up. Texas lost to Oklahoma, right? So Oklahoma lost the Battle of Bedlam, and they lost one other game that I, for some reason, and just it escapes me for whatever reason. Either way, though, the Texas Longhorns, just 2 losses on the year. This was a big year coming in for Texas. Are they back? Can they show they're back on a national scale, on a grand scale, if you will? I thought Texas did a great job. Quinn Ewers with a great season. That defense was really good. They had talent on talent on talent. And so you get to the college football playoff and you get to the Sugar Bowl and you fall short of the goal of winning the national title. But again, I think, guys, a successful season in Austin, Texas, no doubt. A Longhorns program that I think really sets themselves up well coming into the SEC now. And we'll see how they fare. The schedule is a gauntlet, of course, but Texas in prime position to make a splash early in the SEC. Texas A&M, let's go to College Station, guys. Of course, the big noteworthy thing in College Station, Jimbo Fisher fired this year. Changing of the guard as Mike Elko takes over the Texas A&M Aggies. Overall, this season went, if I can get the record pulled up, here we go. Went 7-6, 4-4 in SEC play. Of course, that loss in the Texas Bowl to Oklahoma State. I give Texas A&M guys a D-. I mean, I just think all in all, when you have a season in which you fire your head coach, which maybe some will say that was a positive that happened, but you fire your head coach, you were beat down, beat like a drum on Rocky Top, losing to Alabama, just losing to Miami early in the season, which really set the tone for what the 2023 season ended up being for Texas A&M. Not a whole lot to smile about, not a whole lot to celebrate, not a whole lot to cheer. I mean, I think the most positive thing that happened for Texas A&M this season was Jimbo Fisher getting fired. A D- for the Aggies. And finally, guys, the helmet right here to my right, the Vanderbilt Commodores. My Vandy folks, I love you. Thank you for sending the gear to the studio. But I got to be honest with you right here, so buckle up. I'm giving Vanderbilt an F for the 2023 season. 2-10 overall, 0-8 in SEC play. And guys, this was coming off of a season last year in which Vandy won a pair of SEC games, went 5-7. We're sitting here thinking to ourselves, okay, Vandy's a team ready to take a step forward, make a splash. They got some key pieces returning. Clark Lee doing great things. And as you see by the helmet, guys, love Clark Lee, love Vandy, love what they're building and doing in Nashville. But man, you lose that early season game to UNLV. UNLV is trolling the SEC because of it. You then lose to Wake Forest. You were never really competitive at all in SEC play. Like, there wasn't even a moment where I was like, Vandy might win the game. They might win this ball game. Just nothing positive. I mean, you beat Hawaii in week 0. Congratulations. Nothing positive coming out of this season for Clark Lee and company. A really, really tough year. And I hope the Commodores can rebound and get it figured out, because there's no reason why Vandy cannot have at least an average football program, a program that's fighting to get to 6 wins, get to bowl eligibility. They were eons from that this season. An F overall grade for the Vanderbilt Commodores. Guys, that being said, we're going to jump into our first break of the day. On the other side, we'll keep the conversation rolling. A huge piece is back for the Tennessee Volunteers in the 2024 season. Guys, I'll talk about that, the significance of it, what it means for Tennessee going into year 4 of the Josh Heupel era. Guys, all that and more on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to SEC Unfiltered Live.
Yo, you think Dallas' Power 4 gonna drop 30 tomorrow?
Boy, you tripping.
Did you see his mom made a post about going to the game?
What? Hold up. His mama gonna be there?
He's been averaging like 34 points a game when she's there.
At least 40 when she be on that Jumbotron.
He don't like to let his mama down.
Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Cash in on your sports fandom with Prize Picks.
SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Go download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com. And when you do, use the promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is the simplest fantasy game on the market, focused around prop total entries. You pick 2 to 6 players, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. Prize Picks has no sharks, optimizers, or mass multi-entry. It's literally just you against the projection. They also allow mixed sport entry. So, for example, you can take the over on LeBron, parlay with the under on Mahomes. They've got college sports, pro sports, literally anything and everything you can think of. They have got it over at Prize Picks. They also have a slick, easy-to-use mobile app, both on the App Store and Google Play, and they're rated 4.8 stars in the App Store with rave reviews. So many fans and listeners of SEC Unfiltered have made tons of money with our friends at Prize Picks, and you should as well. So again, go download the Prize Picks app or head over to prizepicks.com, and when you do, use that promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. We're also brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie. When your money's on the line, choose a trusted sports book that gives you tools to win, like MyBookie. At MyBookie, it doesn't matter if your team is up or down. You can easily cash out or bet the game live to come out on the winning side. Use MyBookie for daily odds boosts, same-game parlays, and take advantage of huge prize pool contests. Every single sack, fumble, and touchdown is another chance to hit payday. To get started, go to mybookie.ag, and on your first deposit, use promo code SECU to grab a deposit match up to $1,000. Try the MyBookie money bag as well to grab a potential Super Bowl frontrunner at long shot odds, plus 38,000 on the Eagles and Chiefs. You won't find odds like that anywhere else. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. Finally, SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Roback. Guys, if you haven't heard of Roback before, it's time to check them out. It's safe to say I'd bet on these guys any day of the week because I absolutely love their gear. I couldn't be more pumped to work with Roback. It's simply some of the most comfortable gear that I own. From the performance polos to the hoodies and the joggers, it's some of the best fit and best feel around. Roback's performance hoodies are some of the best pieces of clothing I've ever worn. I can't emphasize how soft these things are with great stretch and breathability. They're simply some of the best hoodies out there. Odds are, guys, if you see me during football season, baseball season, basketball season, or just here on SEC Unfiltered Live, you'll more than likely see me in a Roback hoodie. Secondly, guys, Roback's performance polos, they're some of the most comfortable polos out there. They're moisture wicking with 4-way stretch, making them perfect for a game day, and they have the perfect fit. With crisp collars that don't lose their shape, I could not recommend these polos more. In all honesty, guys, Roback's been gaining traction big time. I'm sure you've seen them. They've been working with some of college football's biggest stars, such as Alabama's quarterback Jalen Milroe and former LSU head coach Ed Orgeron. So go check them out now and use the promo code SECU on Roback.com for a generous 20% off your first order. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. 20% off all bottoms, Q-zips, hoodies, and more with the promo code SECU. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Wednesday, January the 3rd, 2024, as we dive into hour number 2 of SEC Unfiltered Live. By the way, guys, let me say to that last segment, I apologize. I got the whole Oklahoma-Texas thing mixed up. Oklahoma did indeed beat the Texas Longhorns. That was Texas's one loss. I don't know, for whatever reason, I would get those mixed up at times. So I do apologize for that. Oklahoma lost to Kansas and Oklahoma State. So I apologize for that, guys. And, of course, Arizona in the bowl game. And, of course, Texas lost to Washington. Just want to get that out there. I appreciate you guys, though, keeping me correct, letting me know in the comments. Continue to flood us with your comments, guys, your questions, your voicemails, 843-790-3377. You can also text that number as well. We would love to hear from you. Want you guys to be a part of the show. With that being said, guys, we're going to keep it moving. The Tennessee Volunteers got a massive boost as Brew McCoy, the wide receiver, is back for the Vols in 2024. And guys, this is a wide receiver one talent. He will effectively be wide receiver one. And when you think about it, again, it's I think this kind of plays into as we look ahead of 2024 and beyond, and you're going to see some way too early predictions. We're going to have some here in the next couple of days for 2024. What's really exciting for me, it should be exciting for us all, the way we talk about and preview college football, and it was all about the playoff and the 4-team playoff and who's in, who's got a shot to make it. The fact now that there are going to be more teams to get excited about, because there's going to be more teams who have a realistic opportunity to, let's just say, get to double-digit wins and make a college football playoff. And so for a team like Tennessee, who won 9 games this year with a bowl win, 8 wins in the regular season, of course, we know 2 years ago they won double-digit games. What's really exciting is you look at a team like Tennessee, who you look at next year, and I haven't even looked at the schedule, guys, but we probably think to ourselves, okay, Tennessee's an 8 or 9 win team. But they're right there on the cusp, knocking on the door, and it's the return of a player like this, who doesn't have to come back. It's the return of a player like this that can sort of send you over the edge and be that extra boost you need to maybe get that 10th win or be a dark horse for the college football playoff, especially, guys, when you've got a young quarterback in Nico who now gets his top weapon back, right? You already had capable players, capable skill position players, which we're going to get into in a second. But now you got that wide receiver one. And for a young quarterback, right? For a young quarterback, this is such a big deal. The more weapons you can surround him with, the better. Guys, you look at what Brew McCoy has done in his career. Of course, he started at Southern Cal back in 2020, the COVID year, 21 catches, 236 yards, 2 touchdowns. Did not play in 2021, 2022 with the Vols. 52 catches for 667 yards, 12.8 yards per catch, and 4 touchdowns. Was expected with Jalen Hyatt departing and some others to have a bigger role. This year, 17 catches for 217 yards, 1 touchdown. And, of course, the reason, guys, had that gruesome injury really early in the season against South Carolina. Now, it's a big question. Is he going to be 100% the Brew McCoy before that injury? But, guys, even if he's 90%, if he's 95%, right? Like, he's still going to be one of the best wide receivers in the SEC. And, guys, you look at that wide receiver room, right? You look at that wide receiver room. It looks scary for Tennessee. Brew McCoy is now back. He'll return from injury. Squirrel White is back. Was one of the best players on that Tennessee team, that Tennessee offense this past season. Dante Thornton's another young guy. Mike Matthews, Caleb Webb, Chaz Nimrod. Then you've got the running game and Dylan Sampson. And then you've got Nico under center calling the shots and being the trigger man. And you're in a Josh Heupel system. You know they're going to be throwing it all over the yard. They're going to have the run game. I mean, guys, death taxes and Tennessee being good on offense at this point. I know there were many out there, many haters out there that thought Tennessee was going to take a major step back offensively. Josh Heupel, year 3 regression. Guess what? It didn't happen. It didn't happen. Good offense is here to stay in Knoxville. And like I mentioned, guys, we talked about yesterday with the emergence of Nico and, could that lead to Tennessee being sort of a dark horse college football playoff contender? You get a guy like Brew McCoy back, who was a 5-star prospect, extremely talented. We've seen what he can do at the collegiate level. Getting your wide receiver one back is absolutely massive. Again, what he can do, high pointing the football, his speed, his athleticism, his physicality, a really well-rounded wide receiver. I think a guy who's going to be really good at the next level. So, again, the big question for McCoy that I have is just bouncing back from injury. Is he going to be himself? Is he going to be 90%? Is he going to be 80% of himself? Like, coming back from an injury like that can be really, really tough. But if he's able to successfully come back, and there's nothing that tells us he should not be able to bounce back in a big way, it could lead to big things for not just him, but that Tennessee offense. And again, for a team that I would say Tennessee is, you could argue they're one of those fringe teams in 2024 to where, they're right on the cusp of maybe being a college football playoff contender. They've got the defense coming back. They've got weapons offensively. They feel like they've got the right quarterback in Nico. They've got the guy in Josh Heupel that's going to have Tennessee in great position. Now all these pieces adding up matter, right? The transfer portal, and especially don't take anything for granted in the portal world. Everybody's losing guys left and right, and NIL and what have you. When you're able to keep a guy like Brew McCoy in your program and get him back, that is a huge boost for Tennessee, for this football program, and for a team that's looking to maybe make a splash and make a 12-team college football playoff in 2024. Guys, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, is there trouble in Columbia? Transfer portal woes continue, and I just wonder, is it a sign of something bigger, or is it just the nature of the transfer portal? Guys, all that and more on the other side of this break. You're tuned in to SEC Unfiltered Live.
Yo, you think Dallas' Power 4 gonna drop 30 tomorrow?
Boy, you tripping.
Did you see his mom made a post about going to the game?
What? Hold up. His mama gonna be there?
He's been averaging like 34 points a game when she's there.
At least 40 when she be on that Jumbotron.
He don't like to let his mama down.
Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Cash in on your sports fandom with Prize Picks.
SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Go download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com. And when you do, use the promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is the simplest fantasy game on the market, focused around prop total entries. You pick 2 to 6 players, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. Prize Picks has no sharks, optimizers, or mass multi-entry. It's literally just you against the projection. They also allow mixed sport entries. So, for example, you can take the over on LeBron, parlay with the under on Mahomes. They've got college sports, pro sports, literally anything and everything you can think of. They have got it over at Prize Picks. They also have a slick, easy-to-use mobile app, both on the App Store and Google Play, and they're rated 4.8 stars in the App Store with rave reviews. So many fans and listeners of SEC Unfiltered have made tons of money with our friends at Prize Picks, and you should as well. So again, go download the Prize Picks app or head over to prizepicks.com, and when you do, use that promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. We're also brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie. When your money's on the line, choose a trusted sports book that gives you tools to win, like MyBookie. At MyBookie, it doesn't matter if your team is up or down. You can easily cash out or bet the game live to come out on the winning side. Use MyBookie for daily odds boosts, same-game parlays, and take advantage of huge prize pool contests. Every single sack, fumble, and touchdown is another chance to hit payday. To get started, go to mybookie.ag, and on your first deposit, use promo code SECU to grab a deposit match up to $1,000. Try the MyBookie money bag as well to grab a potential Super Bowl frontrunner at long shot odds, plus 38,000 on the Eagles and Chiefs. You won't find odds like that anywhere else. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. Finally, SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Roback. Guys, if you haven't heard of Roback before, it's time to check them out. It's safe to say I'd bet on these guys any day of the week because I absolutely love their gear. I couldn't be more pumped to work with Roback. It's simply some of the most comfortable gear that I own. From the performance polos to the hoodies and the joggers, it's some of the best fit and best feel around. Roback's performance hoodies are some of the best pieces of clothing I've ever worn. I can't emphasize how soft these things are. With great stretch and breathability, they're simply some of the best hoodies out there. Odds are, guys, if you see me during football season, baseball season, basketball season, or just here on SEC Unfiltered Live, you'll more than likely see me in a Roback hoodie. Secondly, guys, Roback's performance polos, they're some of the most comfortable polos out there. They're moisture wicking with four-way stretch, making them perfect for a game day, and they have the perfect fit. With crisp collars that don't lose their shape, I could not recommend these polos more. In all honesty, guys, Roback's been gaining traction big time. I'm sure you've seen them. They've been working with some of college football's biggest stars, such as Alabama's quarterback Jalen Milroe and former LSU head coach Ed Orgeron. So go check them out now and use the promo code SECU on Roback.com for a generous 20% off your first order. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. 20% off all bottoms, Q-zips, hoodies, and more with the promo code SECU. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Wednesday, January the 3rd, 2024. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. The daily mailbag segment upcoming here in the next 10 to 15 minutes. But in the meantime, guys, and again, I see all of your comments coming in. Continue to flood the chat line. I'm sure there'll be many comments and conversation and thoughts and banter after this next segment. Continue to flood it, 843-790-337. Some of you guys will take your voicemails. We'll take your texts on the other side of this segment that's upcoming. Are transfer portal woes signs of bigger problems for Shane Beamer's South Carolina football program? Guys, you look at the latest. Yesterday, late last night, Grayson Pup Howard, a 2023 four-star signee at the linebacker position into the transfer portal. He chose South Carolina over Florida, Georgia, Arkansas, and some others. What makes this so fascinating, right? What makes this so fascinating is this. Back when he signed, I think it was December of 2022, Shane Beamer went on record, and I mean, literally went on like a 2 or 3 minute rant on how Pup Howard was bought in and loved the school and was positive. Said he went as far as to say, and I'm paraphrasing, but went as far as to say he would die for the university, right? And, you know, I understand where we're at in college football, right? Like the transfer portal's madness. NIL is madness. And if you know anything about this situation, this kid, it doesn't sound like NIL was the top factor in this scenario. What it sounds like is that the kid was homesick. He's from Jacksonville, Florida, right? South Carolina got him out of the state of Florida. He's from Jacksonville. And what it sounds like is he's homesick, wants to be close to the family. And it sounds like Gainesville, Florida, the Florida Gators, is going to be his landing spot. But, you know, we've seen this time and time again, right? South Carolina last year was gutted by the transfer portal, struggled. This year, they got Rocket Sanders, right, from Arkansas, the running back. They've gotten some other okay pieces, nothing noteworthy, nothing that's going to move the needle. And they've lost some major guys, Juice Wells being one. Now you've got Pup Howard, Stone Blant, another linebacker, just hit the portal for South Carolina, right? So the portal's been a mixed bag. Let's just put it that way. The portal's been a mixed bag for Shane Beamer and the South Carolina Gamecocks. And you take a look at Gamecock Nation, NIL, the nature of the portal, it is what gets blamed, right? It's at the end of the day, it's what gets blamed by not just fans of South Carolina, but all college football fans. A player leaves a certain school, blame it on NIL, blame it on the system, right? Don't blame it on anything going on inside of the building. And with that being said, I just wonder, and I'm not saying that things are terrible or the culture is bad, but I just wonder, after a 5-7 season and a program right now that still sits with the exact same 5-7 coaching staff, I just wonder at what point do fans in Columbia begin to question what's going on behind closed doors? This is not an attack on the culture. This is not an attack on anything that Shane Beamer's doing. But, guys, you have to be honest about the situation. When you have a 5-7 season, right? When you have a 5-7 season and you have the outbursts from Shane Beamer on nearly a weekly basis, and then after the season you have some of your top contributors, guys who aren't looking for more playing time, right? Like, why are guys so eager to get out? Why are guys so eager to go look for the next NIL deal? Juice Wells, gone. He's taking less at Ole Miss. Mario Anderson, the running back, who was given the opportunity of a lifetime, just up and leaves for a bag? He's going to be a starting running back in the SEC next year. Just up and leaves for the bag, and now he's up at Memphis? Stone Blanton, probably going to be a starter next year, or at least in the rotation. And then Grayson Pup Howard, 100% would have been a starter next year. So what is it? Is it all just NIL and portal? Is that all it is? Is that all it is? Or do fans, and I'm not sitting here telling you there is something bigger, but how do you not start to question it when you have the mass portal exodus that South Carolina's had this cycle? 20 guys. And it's the nature of the beast. I totally get that. A lot of these players have left from the standpoint of, hey, they're not playing, or maybe, who knows, maybe they weren't good locker room guys, or I think a lot of these guys were probably told to exit. But when a player like Grayson Pup Howard leaves, like a 4-star signee, you look at his recruiting profile, guys, like, again, pick South Carolina over some very big schools. And I mean, this is a dude, guys, you know, if you go on social media right now, you're going to see the entire Gamecock fan base, or a lot of them, you know, berating the kid, slamming the kid. He wasn't very good. I've seen he was slow. He was this. This was one of the most celebrated signings of the 2023 class. This was a guy that was looked at as a leader in the 2023 class. To insinuate that losing him is just, who cares? No biggie. Is it the end of the world? I mean, no, it's not. But it's not a good sign when you're losing guys like that. Because what are you selling right now if you're Shane Beamer and company? Well, you're selling recruiting. You're selling culture. You're selling the fact that you can sell that to prospects and get the best talent on campus. And guys, when you have the churn that South Carolina's having, again, I know a lot of schools are dealing with it. But I'm simply posing the question, at what point, does the point ever come? But at what point do South Carolina fans start to question what's going on, right? Because at this point last year, Shane Beamer was untouchable. Then all of a sudden, 5-7 happened. Losses to Tennessee, losses to North Carolina, losses to Clemson. Ugly season start to finish. Then you had all the stuff that happened off the field with Shane Beamer, in the press conferences and the outbursts. And then the portal takes place. And it's just like one thing after another. Now you got no coaching staff changes. That leads me to this, guys, in closing. Could this maybe be tied to a change or lack thereof at DC? Or on the defensive staff, for that matter? Again, I am simply just the messenger, guys. I'm just posing the question. I just wonder at what point, right, Gamecock fans have taken a beating over the last, dare I say, 6 to 8 months. I mean, just even the last 365 days. This goes back to last year, losing Marshawn Lloyd, Jaheim Bell, Jordan Birch, Gilbert Edmond, losing key contributors. Jaheim Bell's mom going on social media. There's more to the story, right? There's more than meets the eye. Like, is there? Is there? I simply ask the question, is there? And I think, too, what we're seeing, even if there isn't, guys, having the best culture in college football, having a superior culture in this day and age, a transfer portal, NIL, it's not enough to keep kids around. It's just not. It's just not. It's not enough. If you don't have the NIL backing. But even with that, guys, it just, I think it's very interesting, to say the least. It's interesting. And I just, it's a mass exodus this offseason. Now, if South Carolina goes out there, goes 8-4 in 2024, and all these new guys they added, right, whether it be Rocket Sanders or some guys from lesser schools, they go out there and they ball out and they perform, then, hey, we're going to look back and say Shane Beamer played it correctly. But we've got two examples right now, or we've got two off seasons of building to the portal for Shane Beamer. One of them, he was wildly successful, added Spencer Rattler and Juice Wells. The other, well, you saw how that played out last season. Is Pup Howard just another transfer? Just is what it is? It's the nature of the beast with the portal and NIL? Or is the departure of Pup Howard and others this portal cycle signs of something else, some bigger issues potentially inside of Shane Beamer's program? Guys, we're going to jump into a quick break. On the other side, I want to hear from you, the Daily Mailbag segment, taking your questions, your comments, your voicemails, and more here on this Wednesday. Guys, you're tuned in to SEC Unfiltered Live.
Yo, you think Dallas' Power 4 gonna drop 30 tomorrow?
Boy, you tripping.
Did you see his mom made a post about going to the game?
What? Hold up. His mama gonna be there?
He's been averaging like 34 points a game when she's there.
At least 40 when she be on that Jumbotron.
He don't like to let his mama down.
Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Cash in on your sports fandom with Prize Picks.
SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Go download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com. And when you do, use the promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is the simplest fantasy game on the market, focused around prop total entries. You pick 2 to 6 players, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. Prize Picks has no sharks, optimizers, or mass multi-entry. It's literally just you against the projection. They also allow mixed sport entries. So, for example, you can take the over on LeBron, parlay with the under on Mahomes. They've got college sports, pro sports, literally anything and everything you can think of. They have got it over at Prize Picks. They also have a slick, easy-to-use mobile app, both in the App Store and Google Play, and they're rated 4.8 stars in the App Store with rave reviews. So many fans and listeners of SEC Unfiltered have made tons of money with our friends at Prize Picks, and you should as well. So again, go download the Prize Picks app or head over to prizepicks.com, and when you do, use that promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. We're also brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie. When your money's on the line, choose a trusted sports book that gives you tools to win, like MyBookie. At MyBookie, it doesn't matter if your team is up or down. You can easily cash out or bet the game live to come out on the winning side. Use MyBookie for daily odds boosts, same-game parlays, and take advantage of huge prize pool contests. Every single sack, fumble, and touchdown is another chance to hit payday. To get started, go to mybookie.ag, and on your first deposit, use promo code SECU to grab a deposit match up to $1,000. Try the MyBookie money bag as well to grab a potential Super Bowl frontrunner at long shot odds, plus 38,000 on the Eagles and Chiefs. You won't find odds like that anywhere else. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. Finally, SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Roback. Guys, if you haven't heard of Roback before, it's time to check them out. It's safe to say I'd bet on these guys any day of the week because I absolutely love their gear. I couldn't be more pumped to work with Roback. It's simply some of the most comfortable gear that I own. From the performance polos to the hoodies and the joggers, it's some of the best fit and best feel around. Roback's performance hoodies are some of the best pieces of clothing I've ever worn. I can't emphasize how soft these things are with great stretch and breathability. They're simply some of the best hoodies out there. Odds are, guys, if you see me during football season, baseball season, basketball season, or just here on SEC Unfiltered Live, you'll more than likely see me in a Rhoback hoodie. Secondly, guys, Rhoback's performance polos, they're some of the most comfortable polos out there. They're moisture wicking with four-way stretch, making them perfect for a game day, and they have the perfect fit. With crisp collars that don't lose their shape, I could not recommend these polos more. In all honesty, guys, Rhoback's been gaining traction big time. I'm sure you've seen them. They've been working with some of college football's biggest stars, such as Alabama's quarterback Jalen Milroe and former LSU head coach Ed Orgeron. So go check them out now and use the promo code SECU on Rhoback.com for a generous 20% off your first order. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. 20% off all bottoms, Q-zips, hoodies, and more with the promo code SECU. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Wednesday, January the 3rd, 2024. That being said, we have entered our daily mailbag segment for the next 30 minutes or so. We are taking your questions, your comments, and your voicemails at 843-790-3377. You can call that number, text that number, whatever you like. Somebody asked earlier in the chat, I think it was Firevol asked, is that a Vandy helmet? Yes, Firevol, our friends over at Vanderbilt Football, sent us both a helmet and a football. How about that? So, listen, whatever school sends a helmet, we'll rock it up here for a day. If y'all send some gear or whatever, any donations to the SEC Unfiltered HQ are appreciated, the SEC Unfiltered Studio. But shout out our friends at Vandy for sending us the football and the legitimate on-field helmet, man. This is really, really cool stuff. So, yeah. Hey, listen, Fireball, you got a Tennessee helmet you want to send, you do it. We'll put a Tennessee helmet in the background, whatever you like. So anyways, guys, I want to hear from you. Again, a lot of questions, a lot of comments. Let's go back. I think we actually have a couple texts as well. Texter says, what up, Chris? Robbie Davis, Zaxby's Hall of Famer. He's picking the South Carolina men's basketball or the basketball games. He's got South Carolina beating Mississippi State 77-70. And the women's game, 82-72, South Carolina beating Florida. Thank you, Robbie Davis. Those are Robbie Davis predictions. Love that. Let's see. Going through your questions here. Billy Cotton is feeling some type of way today. Cody Larmer, appreciate you tuning in, ready for another show. Bruin Nation said, careful, Chris. James is about to call you a Vandy fan. Scotty Griffin says, take it from the South Carolina fans. It's always the O-line and the OC. Can't blame everything on QB1. Actually kind of makes me happy to see Alabama lose like that. Interesting. Wesley Williams says that Tennessee is going to beat Alabama next season. That game is in Knoxville, too. Hey, is Nico going to beat Alabama? Again, guys, to my Tennessee folks out there, I do apologize. I think I butchered Nico's last name yesterday. The Tennessee folks who all tuned in to the clip on social media, on YouTube, I should say, they were sure to make me well aware that I butchered it. I thought I had it right the whole time. So I got to go back and practice. I completely mispronounced his last name, I guess. So my apologies to Tennessee fans. I do apologize for that. Let's see. Ethan K. Money and winning is more important in this era of college football for players. Indeed. Again, I go back to the Bruin Nation, the old Twitter account from Bruin Nation said we've tried, South Carolina's tried culture and love and all that. How about try tampering and money in regards to South Carolina football? So, Greg Bedinger says agree with South Carolina in the grade of D. However, it doesn't appear that South Carolina will change to a new defensive coordinator. Interesting times in Columbia, to say the freaking least. Austin Gregory. Jimmy Lindsey left South Carolina, is out of a job. In all honesty, if you want job security, stay at South Carolina. Yeah, I mean, listen, man. LSU fans, LSU folks, they asked me how I felt about Jimmy Lindsey and thoughts on him being the defensive line coach. And, I want to be sensitive to it because Jimmy Lindsey obviously suffered the stroke this season, guys, wasn't around the team a lot. Did come back, thankfully, so he's okay. But want to be sensitive to that. But just speaking on football, I don't think Jimmy Lindsey's very good. I didn't think he was good at South Carolina. They never could stop the run with Jimmy Lindsey calling the shots. And my LSU guys have told me that the players actually didn't like him at LSU. So what does that tell you? Let's see. Going through your questions. Ethan K says, seems like the writing's on the wall for Shane Beamer, unfortunately. Either change what you're doing or you go back to being an assistant. He can't afford to be stubborn anymore. I mean, I tell you this, guys. The way the portal's going, and I saw somebody comment, Greg Bedinger on December 27, South Carolina was number 6 in the transfer portal rankings. Greg, based off what I just looked at and saw on 24/7 Sports, they are number 11 in the transfer portal rankings. Either way, though, you have this type of offseason again in the portal. South Carolina, I mean, heck, they're struggling to add a backup quarterback. They can't even find a backup quarterback, right? You have this happen, and then you struggle again this fall, go 5-7, miss a bowl game. Going to be a very interesting conversation in Columbia. Frank says, I'm sticking with White. It's going to be on Beamer's headstone. Guys, in case you missed the big news that happened right before the show, LSU firing Matt House, their defensive coordinator. Not surprising at all. I mean, when you look at how bad that defense was this season, guys, I mean, the fact he made it all the way through the season, I think was surprising. But, yeah, I just, you have the type of year they had on the defensive side of the football. Doesn't surprise me at all that LSU, and I think a good move. So, let's see. Austin Gregory says Tennessee's annual quarterback cycle. Quarterback pads the stats in the Heupel system. Season then goes off the rails. Win a bowl game with a future quarterback. A future quarterback is crowned as the next Heisman, and we are at that point. I mean, I get what you're saying, Austin. I totally understand it. I mean, I think Tennessee fans are obviously hoping that the season won't go off the rails one day. So, the Heupel system, you're right, is great for quarterbacks. I mean, did Tennessee's season go off the rails this year? I mean, they won 8 games. 8-4 is not bad. And that's the whole point, though, Austin. If that's the floor under Heupel, I after the season or after the decade of disappointment, decade plus of disappointment that Tennessee fans went through with all the different coaches and the seasons, I don't think there's a Tennessee fan out there that would say that they turned their nose up at 8 wins being the floor for the Tennessee program moving forward. I mean, that's where South Carolina fans were hoping they would be after 2022, and you went into 2023, and you talked about the importance of getting to 8-4 and setting a new standard and setting a new floor. And instead, South Carolina football is what it is, what it's always been for over 100 years, which is mediocre. So, Austin Gregory, we got to see Heupel's ceiling and floor in a 2-year span. Well, again, Austin, I mean, if that ceiling is 11 wins or even 10 wins, you're going to the college football playoff. So, yeah. Ethan K., Gene Chizik has been fired for the North Carolina Tar Heels, and yet UNC had 9 sacks against South Carolina. Austin Miller says that the coaching staff doesn't change and South Carolina has another sub-500 year. I think Shane Beamer is gone. Very well could happen. Yeah, I mean, guys, realistically, and like these are conversations we'll have, as we get more so into the summer and we start talking about these teams, what have you. I mean, it's, from the South Carolina side, I just don't know how as a Gamecock fan. I just, if South Carolina goes 5-7, they've got 4 gimme wins. If they go 1-7 in those other 8 games, I don't know how you don't make a move. I don't know how you don't make a move, because what you'll be saying is like, we have no expectations. We have no standards. at all. This is not me telling you that's what should happen. I will just be stunned if it doesn't because, again, you got to have some sort of standards and expectations. So, guys, the transfer portal madness is in full swing. Got a couple Florida guys visiting Texas A&M. Crazy. Let's see. John Edward, according to Jamie Bradford, Monterio Hardesty has been let go. Interesting. That will be that will be a necessary move. Austin Gregory feels weird being this close to February. Not a word in the world is being spoke about signing day. At what point do we drop the term early from the December signing day? That is the real national signing day. I agree with you. I agree with you 110%, Austin. I mean, everybody who's anybody signs at the early signing day. That's, and I mean, I guess, we look back at last year, like a Nick Harbor for South Carolina did not. There's others out there that make those decisions and they wait till late. But 95% of these guys are signing, right? They're signing. They're signing early or on National Signing Day, what have you. They're signing. So, yeah. Let's see. Anyways, guys, in case you missed the big coaching change today, Matt House of LSU defensive coordinator, he is out as DC. And again, this is just one that the writing's on the wall. Not surprising at all. Looks like Auburn has added to their coaching staff. Charles Kelly leaving Colorado. He will be joining. Okay. Colorado defensive coordinator Charles Kelly leaving to join the Auburn staff to be co-DC, either a secondary role or co-defensive coordinator role. Interesting. So Hugh Freeze boosting up the defensive side of the football. Let's see. Again, guys, 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377 here on this Wednesday, guys. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button. You're on YouTube. Hit that bell icon so you get notifications when we go live. We drop new video content as well. Also, guys, the podcast can be found SEC Unfiltered on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. Daily video, daily podcast. It all drops, guys. Content bleeding out the eyeballs on social media, of course, as well. Really appreciate you all. Your love and support. Guys, I think tomorrow, we'll probably go ahead and preview and break down and predict the national championship game. I mean, right, there's no SEC team in it, but we're not going to not predict it, right? We're not going to not pick it. So we'll talk a little bit of Michigan and Washington. That'll probably be tomorrow. And then Friday, guys, really exciting Friday. We're going to talk some SEC basketball. We're going to talk a little SEC basketball, preview these games, predict these games as well. In case you were wondering, guys, yes, we're going to be talking college basketball. We're going to talk SEC basketball. You can expect really moving forward on Fridays and Mondays, there'll be a big portion of those shows dedicated to SEC basketball, talking, breaking things down, picking those games, what have you. Also, guys, games that are on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, day of, we will break down. Maybe have special guests on to help us talk about those games as well. So really exciting stuff, guys, as action begins on the hardwood in SEC play, at least. Again, it does sound like I see South Carolina folks chiming in. It's looking like South Carolina is firing their running backs coach, Monterio Hardesty, or at least he's moving on. I don't think we've seen anything necessarily on social media. There's been no real confirmation, but It does sound like Shane Beamer maybe is making a move. Does sound like Shane Beamer's making a move in the coaching staff. So, which you had to. You had to if you're Shane Beamer after 5-7. You have to show and prove to everyone that 5-7's not good enough for your program. Guys, we're going to jump into one final break. On the other side, we'll take more of your questions, comments, and voicemails as we close out the show in style. All that and more, guys, on the other side. You're tuned in to SEC Unfiltered Live.
Yo, you think Dallas' Power 4 gonna drop 30 tomorrow?
Boy, you tripping.
Did you see his mom made a post about going to the game?
What? Hold up. His mama gonna be there?
He's been averaging like 34 points a game when she's there.
At least 40 when she be on that Jumbotron.
He don't like to let his mama down.
Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Cash in on your sports fandom with Prize Picks.
SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Go download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com. And when you do, use the promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is the simplest fantasy game on the market, focused around prop total entries. You pick 2 to 6 players, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. Prize Picks has no sharks, optimizers, or mass multi-entry. It's literally just you against the projection. They also allow mixed sport entries. So, for example, you can take the over on LeBron, parlay with the under on Mahomes. They've got college sports, pro sports, literally anything and everything you can think of. They have got it over at Prize Picks. They also have a slick, easy-to-use mobile app, both in the App Store and Google Play, and they're rated 4.8 stars in the App Store with rave reviews. So many fans and listeners of SEC Unfiltered have made tons of money with our friends at Prize Picks, and you should as well. So again, go download the Prize Picks app or head over to prizepicks.com, and when you do, use that promo code SECU to receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. We're also brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie. When your money's on the line, choose a trusted sports book that gives you tools to win, like MyBookie. At MyBookie, it doesn't matter if your team is up or down. You can easily cash out or bet the game live to come out on the winning side. Use MyBookie for daily odds boosts, same-game parlays, and take advantage of huge prize pool contests. Every single sack, fumble, and touchdown is another chance to hit payday. To get started, go to mybookie.ag, and on your first deposit, use promo code SECU to grab a deposit match up to $1,000. Try the MyBookie money bag as well to grab a potential Super Bowl frontrunner at long shot odds, plus 38,000 on the Eagles and Chiefs. You won't find odds like that anywhere else. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. Finally, SEC Unfiltered Live is brought to you by our friends over at Roback. Guys, if you haven't heard of Roback before, it's time to check them out. It's safe to say I'd bet on these guys any day of the week because I absolutely love their gear. I couldn't be more pumped to work with Roback. It's simply some of the most comfortable gear that I own. From the performance polos to the hoodies and the joggers, it's some of the best fit and best feel around. Roback's performance hoodies are some of the best pieces of clothing I've ever worn. I can't emphasize how soft these things are with great stretch and breathability. They're simply some of the best hoodies out there. Odds are, guys, if you see me during football season, baseball season, basketball season, or just here on SEC Unfiltered Live, you'll more than likely see me in a Roback hoodie. Secondly, guys, Roback's performance polos, they're some of the most comfortable polos out there. They're moisture wicking with 4-way stretch, making them perfect for a game day, and they have the perfect fit. With crisp collars that don't lose their shape, I could not recommend these polos more. In all honesty, guys, Roback's been gaining traction big time. I'm sure you've seen them. They've been working with some of college football's biggest stars, such as Alabama's quarterback Jalen Milroe and former LSU head coach Ed Orgeron. So go check them out now and use the promo code SECU on Roback.com for a generous 20% off your first order. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. 20% off all bottoms, Q-zips, hoodies, and more with the promo code SECU. Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Wednesday, January the 3rd, final 10 minutes or so here on SEC Unfiltered Live. For all the Gamecock folks out there and many others, there's been many coaching changes today. LSU's defensive coordinator firing, the big one. But for South Carolina, for you local South Carolina folks, Montario Hardesty has officially been relieved of his duties. The Big Spur reporting this now just 4 minutes ago. Shane Beamer makes his first staff change. The numbers are crazy. Like when you talk about the why behind it, South Carolina guys finished dead last in the Southeastern Conference in rushing, 85.1 yards per game, more than 10 yards less than 13th ranked Vanderbilt, who averaged 95.3 yards per game. In Hardesty's 3 years, South Carolina finished 11th, 12th, and 14th in the league in rushing. And I think what really did it for Montario Hardesty is when you have multiple misses in recruiting, right? Just miss after miss after miss. And then you're brought to a point where, and this is all due respect to the kid, but you're brought to a point where your best option, or you feel like your best option, is to start a guy who's a converted quarterback to wide receiver, and then you're asking to play running back and to carry on Joyner. When all along the best running back on your roster was the third string guy, Mario Anderson, and it took you like half the season to see that? Plenty of damning evidence. Plenty of it. So I know Gamecock fans are thrilled. That's the first domino. We'll see if there's more, but the first domino to fall on South Carolina's coaching staff. Let's see. Austin Gregory, assuming Florida loses every game, they're not favored in, basically 10 out of 11 of them. How many games does Napier make it through the season before getting fired? I'd have to look at the schedule. Let's see. I think I actually have the schedule pulled up. Yeah, Austin, you look at Florida's 2024 schedule. Let's see where. There we go. Okay. That's 2023. Darn it. Okay. Anyways, I think you'll pretty much know after the first month. They got Miami. I think they've got Texas A&M early. I think we're going to know pretty quickly. Like, I think if it's ugly early on, Austin, like, I think the trigger, I think it's going to be quick. I think it's going to be very, very quick, believe it or not. So, Scotty Griffin, how long until conference championships are gone? Or even players opting out of conference title games only because they are in the playoffs? I guess, Scotty, that could happen. I mean, I just look at it this way, Scotty. Like, do you think winning the SEC doesn't matter? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that still matters, in my opinion. You know, that still matters. So, Scotty, nothing would surprise me at this point. I mean, heck, we could see a time where certain guys opt out of playoff games, man. If their team's a 10 or 11 or 12 seed and they say, you know what? We probably ain't going to make a run anyways. I'm going to protect my future. And I hate to think of that. And that would be crazy. But we used to think it was crazy that players would opt out of a bowl game. And now it's common practice, right? You used to think it'd be crazy for somebody to opt out of the Orange Bowl. Now it's common practice. So opting out of a championship game, like a conference championship, opting out of a playoff game where you're, one of the lower seeds, it sounds crazy, but we may get to a point where it's standard practice. And I hope not. I really hope not. Austin Gregory also playing for home field advantage. You're not in the top 4. That's a great point, Austin. That's a great, great point. Yeah. He says conference championships mean more now than ever. First round bye. Yes. Great points. Great points by Austin Gregory. Great points. Anyways, guys, 843-790-3377, 5 minutes or so remaining. Appreciate you all, guys. Thank you all so much for the continued love and support, guys. We got big things in the pipeline. Some really exciting things happening with SEC Unfiltered. We're currently building out our SEC Unfiltered team, adding on contributors, guys. I'll give you all kind of a peek behind the curtain. The goal in the short term, when I say short term, I mean ASAP, probably by end of month, but ASAP. The goal in the short term is to have a team of 6 to 8 football contributors, 3 to 4 basketball contributors, and 3 to 4 baseball contributors. Also, probably 3 to 4 gambling contributors. So I'm talking what? That would be almost a team of 20 people. Yeah, a couple shows too. And we've already got 3 or 4 people on right now. So I mean, yeah, a team of like 20 people. So we're growing, we're expanding, we're scaling. Very, very exciting stuff, guys. The goal obviously is for SEC Unfiltered Live, or this segment here, this 12 to 2, to be just a small piece of what we do content-wise. And I feel very confident that that will happen. And I know it will happen. We're going through right now kind of the process of, picking out our people and filtering out our people, and really excited for it. Really excited for it, man, to add content, add value, right? The website is beautiful. I want that website to be producing content and putting out content on a daily basis multiple times per day. You know what I mean? So I want that to be the one-stop shop for you guys. So really exciting stuff. Austin Gregory says, if you plan to go to a different game every week, are you going to have a name for your SEC tour? I don't know yet, Austin. I don't know. I know Pate does that, right? He names the tours. He did the, the once upon a season, or once upon a playoff, or once upon a something tour. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe we will. We'll see, Austin. We'll see. I'm just excited to go, man. I haven't even really thought about a name. Scotty Griffin asked the question, or let's see, actually, Ethan K. Any big SEC basketball or baseball guests planned for 2024? Right now, no, but we will have somebody. We'll have something for sure. We'll have something for sure. Ethan, man, I'm super pumped. I mean, we've got guests that we've had of old. I think of like a Kyle Peterson from D1 Baseball. I think of those D1 Baseball guys. Our buddies over at 11.7. Obviously being SEC Unfiltered, Ethan, it's just going to open up so many doors for so many potential guests that we can have on the show that are basketball and baseball people. So I'm really looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it, man. It's going to be a good time. And certainly don't look past basketball. Again, we're going to talk a lot of basketball beginning Friday. We're going to break down these games and looking forward to watching these games and breaking them all down on Monday. And just it's going to be a good time, man. I'm really looking forward to it. And talking SEC hoops is going to be a lot of fun for sure. Let's see. Yeah, so it's official now by Matt Zenitz, 24/7 Sports. Monterio Hardesty out at South Carolina. Matt House is out at LSU. So, right, we had bowl season. We had the regular season. We had championship weekend. We had the transfer portal season. We had signing day. We had bowl season. And now 'tis the season. You're going to see a lot of staff shakeup, I think, over the next couple of weeks at a lot of different programs. Guys, great stuff today. Truly appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Like I mentioned, be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Hit that bell icon so you get notifications of when we go live and when we drop new video content as well, which we do on a daily basis. Also, guys, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, guys. Also, leave us a 5-star review. It helps boost the show, helps folks to find the show, and we would appreciate you doing that. You can find us there again at SEC Unfiltered, everywhere you get your podcasts, and all across social media, guys, and secunfiltered.com. Like I mentioned, guys, as we grow our team, as we expand our content catalog, we're going to have more and more and more content on the website. Really excited for that, guys, so stay tuned. And then again, like I mentioned, all across social media, it's content bleeding out of the eyeballs. One final shout out to Vanderbilt football. Appreciate them sending over some stuff. And guys, if you've got anything you want to donate to the studio, donate HQ, any memorabilia, anything, if there's any other programs out there for whatever reason watching, you want to send us a helmet, a football, whatever it might be, we'd love to have it. I'd love to bolster up the show with a bunch of SEC stuff. And so shout out to the Commodore. Shout out to Clark Lee and company. Really appreciate you guys. And appreciate you all. Thank you all so much for tuning in, guys. Appreciate each and every single one of you. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. And we will talk to you all tomorrow.